So hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we will feature a virtual panel discussion on intimate apparel careers. We will be speaking with members of the Under Fashion Club, Maggie Bacon, Annalisa Chandler, Debbie Gedney, and Nicole Rendon. In attendance, we have the Future of Fashion students from the High School of Fashion Industries. My name is Tara Ricci, faculty member and the Fashion Design Department Coordinator at the High School of Fashion Industries. I will be serving as the discussions moderator. Okay, here are our panelists. Maggie Bacon, founder and CEO of Thistle Inspire. Annalisa Chandler, senior designer at Vandale Industries. Debbie Gedney, president of Comar Intimates. And Nicole Rendon, former Senior Creative Director of Design, Bras and Innovation at Nike. So here's the format to give you an idea of what to expect. We'll take a few moments for each of the panelists to briefly introduce themselves and tell a little bit about their background in the industry. I'll kick off the conversation asking questions that draw out some exciting information about their experiences, careers, and what it takes to be successful in the intimate apparel industry. We ask that all students remain muted until the question and answer portion reserved at the end of the session. After the discussion, we will open the floor to give you an opportunity to ask specific questions that you've been thinking about. All right, so let's get started with the panel introductions. Okay. I'd like to introduce Maggie Bacon. Okay.
Hi, that's me. I'm Maggie Bacon. As you already said, I'm the founder and CEO of Thistle Inspire. I'm also the design director for the business. I got my start at FIT. I went there, got my bachelor's at FIT with a specialization in intimate apparel, and I graduated 11 years ago. And from there, I got my start at Carol Hockman Design Group in the Betsey Johnson Intimates division, which was purchased by Comar when I was there. And then from there, I was able to work for a sort of smaller company doing private label intimates for Urban Outfitters and Forever 21 and sort of more fast fashion approach. And that was working on a smaller team where I really got to see how products were manufactured, how they were actually shipped to the customer. I was able to really see the sales process. And from that, I sort of got the bug to start my own business because it was the first time that I really felt that I could really go out and do it on my own. And so 6 years ago, I started Thistle Inspire, and I was very scrappy, really just making initial samples and cold emailing buyers, and then was able to just borrow a little bit of money to get initial orders, and it sort of snowballed to where it is today, which I can get into more later, but I'll give the other panelists some time to introduce themselves as well.
I'd like to turn it over to Annalisa Chandler.
Hi, my name is Annalisa Chandler. I'm a senior designer at Vandale Industries. I also got my start at the Fashion Institute of Technology, where I specialized in intimate apparel, graduated the associates, and then went on to the bachelor degree there. And while I was in school, I did a number of internships. And while I was there, while I was finishing up school, I was interning with Wacoal, and from there, I was hired, and that kind of started my career. I was an assistant designer at DKNY Underwear, and then moved on to Vandale Industries, where I've been for about 12 years now. And there, I've been able to work on a range of product. I mean, I've worked on items for specialty stores like Fredericks of Hollywood, which was super exciting. I've worked on national brands, national retailers, products for them. I've also worked on product for off-price stores like Burlington and Ross. So I've really worked on a range of both intimates and sleepwear. And now I've worked on Izod, Hanes, Maidenform, a whole range of merchandise. And that's where I am right now. I'm at Vandale, and yeah, that's pretty much my story. Working on sleep and intimates, and yeah, there I've been for a while, just taking the opportunities that have been given to me in different areas of the industry.
Thank you, Annalisa. Now it's time for Debbie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Debbie Gedney. I'm probably the only non-designer, I guess, on this panel, but I have been working in the intimate apparel industry for more years than I'll mention. I was lucky enough when I got out of college to go to work for Macy's, New York, and went into their buying training program right out of college. And where was I assigned? The first task was to be a department manager in one of the branch stores in intimate apparel. Totally overwhelmed and confused, but I loved every minute of it. And here I am, I won't say how many more years later, running a $175 million wholesale business that does intimate apparel. We design, we manufacture, we source. We're passionate about what we do, and we sell customers from Walmart to Neiman Marcus and everybody in between. And it's been blessed.
Thanks, Debbie. And now for Nicole Rendon.
Hi, you guys. I'm Nicole Rendon. I was most recently former senior creative designer of bras and innovation at Nike. I left that role a few months ago for a dream job in Europe. So I should be moving to London, but COVID's going on. So that's been stalled for another month at least while they're in lockdown. Which has been fun, actually, because I've been consulting and working with some awesome young women and startups in my little bit of downtime. But I started at FIT as well. I actually really wanted to study intimate apparel design. And I had never heard of fashion school, to be honest. I love fashion, but I wanted to get into bras, and I Googled schools that had a degree in it. And FIT was the only school in the US that had a specialization. I'd never been to New York, never been to London, never been to Hong Kong where the other schools were. So I got myself to New York before I was even accepted to go to school there. And the program's amazing. And then I got introduced to the Under Fashion Club, who I'm still so grateful because those connections continue to be awesome. I got scholarships and internships through them. And now 15 years plus, also not going to say how many, but into my career, I continue to be passionate and love it every single day. And yeah, through those internships, I interned first with Hanes Brands, who are awesome. Still so grateful to the people there. And then I went to Ariella Alpha, which is another company that does Walmart. They did high-end then, and they do a bunch of brands. And I think some of these companies that do a lot of brands, it's so awesome because you learn how to work with different brands, and you learn about branding and how to be really versatile in different product and different designs, and how to carry different energies. Then Annalisa, I guess we were at Vandale together. I didn't recognize your name, but I recognized you the second I saw your face. I had to do a little quick Google. I wasn't there for very long, but we were there at the same time. I recognized you right away.
When I saw your face, I recognized you. I was like, I know her.
Yeah, I'm like, I saw her when occasionally when we do CAD at the lower level, we were different teams. But I worked there, and we did some stuff for Victoria's Secret. And then I went to another company that worked with Victoria's Secret as well. And so they brought me over. And I worked with a brand they bought, French-Canadian La Senza, moved to Columbus. So different companies might try to move you different places. And I say, go for it. I was never going to save money in New York, but you could save it in Columbus. And it was one of the best experiences of my career. Then I went back and worked for Victoria's Secret Pink, which is an awesome brand that is so focused on helping young women. And I love that. And I I'm truly passionate about what we do because our product is not only fashion and cool, but we also help women. And we help, when you have the wrong underwear or bras, it's a bad experience all day long and you just can't feel good. So it's so important to get really good bras and underwear for all women everywhere so they can feel good about themselves. So love that at Pink. And then Nike reached out to me. Never wanted to do sport, never wanted to live in Portland, Oregon, where I am now. But I met with them and what they wanted to do for women and how they were inspiring all women was amazing to me. So moved there and they really didn't have a bra team yet. So set that up and it was a dream. It's been a dream. Did a lot of awesome things there and a lot of focus on innovation and sport, which is a whole different area of the business, but also really, really cool. Anyway, sorry, I'm talking forever.
Okay, so with that in mind, why don't we start to dive into to some of the questions, okay? Our students are really excited to hear what a typical day entails for you. So, what are some of your responsibilities? What's your day look like? And what I'm going to ask is either, our panelists could raise their hand or just kind of give me like a little wave, or just so we don't speak over each other. I know it's really hard to identify those cues in the virtual setting. So whatever works for you. Okay.
Sure. Do you want me to start?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the first thing you have to understand about being in the apparel business is there is no typical day. And to me, that's one of the most exciting things about it is, particularly in my job, because I run design teams, production teams, sales teams, financial teams. So it just all is just get ready for kind of whatever can happen. And I don't think any designer's day is typical either. I mean, I think what's typical about it is you have to be focused, you have to be task oriented, and you have to really embrace what you're doing and just want to do it in a great way. And that's kind of the only constant. I'll see if the other panelists agree.
I can chime in. I think I'm the only one who runs their own business. So I think as someone who's worked for other people and also has worked for myself, I definitely agree with Debbie that there really isn't a typical day in apparel. And I also find that really thrilling and exciting. For me as a business owner, I find that I have to block off specific time to actually work on creative and being a designer, because if I don't, I won't ever get to it. But for me, I come I'm dialed in from my office in the Flatiron right now. And for me, on a typical day, I could be dealing with, accounting, with marketing, photo shoots, sourcing, before COVID, like meeting with different vendors. Fittings take up a lot of my time and definitely take up a lot of time for anyone who's an intimate apparel designer. But I absolutely love fittings. It's such a, it's really where your designs come to life and really where you get to see how it's going to move and feel on the customer. And also spending a lot of time meeting and checking in with all of my team members. I have, marketing team, operations team, my warehouse, meeting with my design team, really to make sure that everything is staying on track and running smoothly. And then for the times that I block off for design, because I have my own business, I actually prefer to still make patterns from scratch and make prototypes myself. But that is definitely not the norm for a typical design company today.
Yeah, I would have to agree. If you're done,
I am done. Go ahead.
Okay, thumbs up. Yeah, I would definitely have to agree that the typical day is kind of all over the place. I think the great thing about, for design, at least you get to meet with so many different teams every day, the sales team, the production team, technical team. And you're checking in with all these people because you get to see product from the beginning, from its creation, all the way through to when it's going to be out and about, into the store. So you're involved in every step of the way. So your day, you can be pulled in so many different directions, getting this product there. And I don't know, at least for me, I find myself actually a lot of the day looking at color, reviewing color. I think that's such a big part of the designer's day as well, looking at the color, making sure, everything is how it's supposed to be, how it was purchased and supposed to be, emailing back with factories and mills and suppliers and all of that throughout the day as well. But yeah, I would have to say connecting with team members, and your day you can go in with a set goal, and sometimes you end up doing all these other little things, and then at the end of the day, try to rein it back and get those things done as well. But yeah, that's a typical.
It sounds like we all have some similar. Oh, Nicole, you're there? Perfect.
Yeah, sorry, you guys. I was trying to cut myself off. My computer restarted and cut me off itself. I think no typical days, and we kind of go through seasons, right? As you guys were all going through, there's design, and then there's where we present to our internal teams, and then our teams present to a greater market. So for us, all the different countries and geographies of Nike come together, and for other people, you're presenting to all the stores all over the US or all over the world, and they're coming back with feedback from their particular consumer. But two of my favorite things are going to stores and going to our stores and meeting with our customers and meeting with the most important people, our sales associates, who give you all that feedback that the customers are saying constantly. And I think of myself as an innovation designer, but I think everyone who does intimate apparel is an innovation-minded person, because our products are all about creating solutions for women. Even if you don't think about a bra or underwear as a solution, there's so many problems that can come up, so it's always solutions. So every time you hear a woman or a girl or tell you their problem that they have with their underwear or their bra, or it's little things that are sticking in your mind that are gonna be fuel for your design later. Even if they're like, oh, I love a sexy strap, later you're like, oh, I want to put that in because so many girls said that, which is so important. And then one other season that I love is in certain companies, you get to travel to Asia and to your factories where they're actually creating machinery to do things differently. So if you think about those bonded thin edges on your bras or the raw cut underwear that you don't see, they're coming up with the machinery and the new tools to do that. And when you get to go to the places where they're making that and see that, to me, that's like Christmas of design. And it's kind of my first time ever. I felt like Willy Wonka in the chocolate factory, or like Charlie. I was running around and like, oh my gosh, so cool, so cool. I could do this, I could do this. And that's where you kind of see the future. And I think that's so exciting to get to be a part of that. And there are a lot of innovative parts of the industry, but I think in intimate apparel, we're lucky there are so many innovations, and the market is so excited for that. So you can put the fashion and the innovation and the solutions all together. And that to me is one of the most exciting things about our work. And of course, that's not every day. But if you remember those parts of the work every day, you keep up that kind of innovative excitement.
So what does it take to be successful in this segment of the industry?
I think that honestly, to be successful in anything, you have to, have passion and have a kick butt work ethic. Doesn't matter if you want to be an accountant or you want to be a fashion designer. That's an important thing to be successful. But I think to be a successful intimate apparel designer, you have to understand what customer you're designing for. You're not designing just for yourself, because if you just want to design pretty stuff for yourself, you're going to have a pretty short career, right? As Nicole referenced, there's so many different women's needs out there, and they're different. What is a small girl versus a larger girl versus a fashion girl, versus what's so exciting in the industry now is it's become so much more inclusive, and we just don't look at garments on pretty girls anymore. But, I make in my business a lot of really full figure garments as well, and we sell, to me, the most amazing full figure product that we sell at Walmart that retails for like $14.98. And what we put into designing that product and what we're going to give that woman is, equal to a Les Mystere bra that we sell for $78 at Saks Fifth Avenue. We take the exact same approach. So I think to be successful in this industry, you have to understand each segment that you're designing for. And, I'm sure for Annalisa, that's different on a different day because they do so many lines, and, maybe it's a little different for Maggie, but whatever your role, you have to understand that, because building intimate apparel truly is an art and a science, because there's such a technical side to it as well. So I think that's important.
Yeah.
You go, Annalisa.
I have to agree. I think that, it takes creating product that's in line with the customer's needs to, be successful. I think being a team player in an industry like this is also, it takes, being a team player to be successful as well. And I think it takes a lot of juggling. I mean, you're working on 3-4 seasons, sometimes at a time. So it takes being able to work on past season, current season, and look for the future. Like, it takes a lot of juggling to work on different seasons, and dedication. I don't know, hard work. I agree with Debbie. As in any industry, I think you're always, working hard and putting forth, your best effort in everything you do. And I don't know, at least for being in design and intimate, I feel like you're kind of always working. Like, even on the weekends, you're going around, you're seeing things, and you're always taking in this inspiration. You're always gathering these things and storing them. So I think that those are some things that it takes to be in the intimate industry.
I agree, Annalisa. I feel like the best ideas come from connecting the dots, and you don't know when you're going to see someone with a new type of button on their shirt that's going to inspire something that you put onto a bra, that someone else saw something else and they have an idea, that it all comes together. So you're just kind of constantly connecting. But I think another really important thing to success is being completely agile and open-minded. Fashion is an ever-growing, speeding forward industry, and intimate apparel with innovation, I think, is even more so. And so no season is going to look the same. And I think sometimes people are looking for, like, when are we going to land the calendar, or when is the deadline not going to change? But if we're not changing, we're not getting better, we're not getting faster, and we're not reacting to what our consumer and women are telling us every day as to how we move forward. So you have to be flexible and excited by the things you learn that make you want to change the way you work. And then I also think getting excited by challenges rather than frustrated by them. To Debbie's point, I worked for a company where I first designed Badgley Mishka, and we were doing $150 bras. And then they translated those to Walmart for a set of bra and underwear for $12. And it was the same pattern, like a lot of the same patterns and fits, and not exactly the same, of course, but then the fabrics changed. But to get that kind of quality at that price point, to me, was way more exciting than sometimes doing high end. Because you think about all the women that can afford to buy that, and all the women that can get that comfortable fit, and that work that you're doing is going to translate into so many people's happiness and satisfaction in what they're wearing. It's so important. So seeing all those tiny challenges as exciting opportunities, and when your costing team or your merchant team tells you they need a higher margin, rather than being frustrated that you have to change your design, getting excited, like, what can I do differently to make this come to life and to meet that, is exciting. So kind of staying agile and open-minded. And then to that point, teamwork, right? Every single person who comes to the table on your team, all of their ideas and opinions and values, we're all equal at the table of design and at the table of a team on a brand. And so really just listening to everybody and being open to hearing people so that you take all that energy and everyone's different perspective and intelligence in together is so important. And at the end of that, when you have that kind of teamwork, you're always winning together. And so when you come up with something great, it's so much more exciting that everybody put it in together than doing it just on your own. So that, to me, teamwork, agility, and then connecting all the dots of all the cool stuff we get to do to create the best product ideas. A lot of important things, but they're all really exciting.
I'll also just add that, yeah, I think agility ties in very well to what I was thinking about, which is, you know, one of the most wonderful things about fashion in general is that it's always moving forward. And whether it's design trends, whether it's like marketing trends, you always need to, you can't be thinking about how you did this last year. You always have to be thinking about where we're going to be next year and 5 years from now, and working and making sure that you're understanding how the world is changing, how customers' habits are changing, and be open-minded to kind of serving what customers want as times change. And I also definitely agree with the teamwork and listening to everyone on your team. I know for me, if I'm in a meeting, if someone's, you know, an intern, or if someone's dropping a package off, I want to know what everyone's thoughts are on what we're looking at, because that's your best bet for really understanding what a large group of people are really going to love and appreciate about the product that you're making.
So what career opportunities are available specific to intimates?
I mean, you can go in one of two directions, I guess. You can go more on the creative side or the technical side. If you're in a design lane, yeah, I think that those are the two biggest kind of choices, the biggest choice a designer needs to make.
Coming into fashion, I learned so much. I mean, my parents didn't think there was a career in fashion. Coming from Chicago, there wasn't as much fashion of an industry. And then you come in and you realize that there's, the design side and the merchandising side. When you get to design, it's not just fashion design, there's technical design and fitting, there's graphic design, there's specific people who in certain companies, their whole job is color. And they just evaluate colors across materials. There's material development, trim development, and in all of those areas, there's innovation, and textile science and functional science and whole wear testing teams that just meet with athletes and consumers and make sure that the product's working. There's so many more careers in what we do than I ever thought of when I was first getting into it. So many opportunities. But yeah, to your point, Debbie, there's the design side and then there's the business side, but there's so many more facets to that. And now e-commerce and digital and special digital fitting, there's so many areas that are coming up in e-commerce that just expand it even more.
I'll just sort of build on that a little bit, just saying that there's all of these different, roles that, Nicole and Debbie just mentioned, but then on top of that, your sort of work experience will be very different depending on what type of company you work for. If you work at a more corporate company, you'll be in more meetings. I work for a smaller company where, people's roles are less specialized and people have, my design team is just myself and a design assistant who, as a result, we're both designers and technical designers because we don't have a team big enough to hire a technical designer yet. And so you can also sort of ask yourself as you're going through your studies about what kind of work you really want to be specializing in, and maybe looking for companies that are both bigger or smaller, depending on how sort of specialized or broad you kind of foresee your work being. But also you guys should also be thinking about or try to intern and get experience at different companies so that you can learn, what it is that you like. Because sometimes I thought that I wanted to work for big companies, and, and climbed the ladder that way and ended up as an entrepreneur. So, sometimes you have to just get the experiences to really have a better understanding of what you're really going to enjoy and want for yourself in your career.
I don't think that I can add much. I was thinking CAD and technical design and all these, and everybody already mentioned that. So if you want to, I don't think I can add any additional. Everybody spoke so well as to many of the opportunities.
No worries. We can move on to the next question. So, building off of that that theme of interning and preparing, what other suggestions or recommendations do you have for aspiring intimate apparel designers?
I can jump in on that, or Annalisa. I think we keep talking at the same time. Okay. I think that the most important thing is to really be out looking at the product. I know that is trickier today than normal, but we will be in a place where it's safe to be going out and shopping more. And I think I learned the most just from going into stores, trying one of every bra on, flipping it inside out, looking at it, try the size that you normally buy, but also try the size up and size down, have a better understanding just of how all of those things work. I think really just from looking at product, you can learn so much. So it's a great place to start and something that you can do with virtually no resources.
Outside of internships, which are a fabulous opportunity. I mean, I can't speak more highly, I think, of internships because they're amazing. Outside of that, I think a recommendation that I would have is learning construction of garments. I think if you want to be in design, to know the construction of a garment, you can think of the most fabulous item, but if you don't know how to construct, if you don't know it from the beginning, from the bottom, it's very difficult. So I would say something really important is to really learn the construction of a garment, learn from the bottom up, know the patterns, know how it's sewn, because if you know that, you can build anything. And I think that that's a really important, valuable asset to have.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, really, any experience you can get on the technical side of the business. I'm not a designer, but I do have a point of view on whether things will retail and what it's going to take to make them retail. But I'm always frustrated that I don't always know how to put it together. And I don't always know how to lead the team to that place. So I would definitely agree to definitely figure out the art and the science part of the business.
Thank you. So in our classrooms with the students, they're constantly, working on group projects today in preparation for the future. Can you tell us a bit more about, why and how teamwork and collaboration is important within the industry?
I mean, I think it's so critical. We talked a little bit about teamwork before in terms of what's really important, but your partners there are your right hands. And when you launch a new product line or you come up with a really killer insight, those people are there, right there doing it with you. And they're the people who are going to make you and your work, but not just you, the teamwork and the brand successful. While you learning construction is so important because you need to know all those details, it might not be your expertise, right? So I'm not a technical designer. But for technical designers to respect you, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to know the technical details. They'll always know it stronger and more than you do. But you come together and know that. And it's kind of your respect to your collaborative partners that you respect what they do. So when you're looking at trims and materials, you know that your textile team and your materials team knows more about that than you do, and technical knows more about fit than you do. But then you all bring your collective expertises together, and that's what really makes the product perfect, because you can come up with the best design in the world, but if it's not fit properly and the fabrics aren't calibrated across inclusive sizing properly, it's not going to be the best design and experience each size person who tries it on. And so that collaboration of everybody bringing their own expertise to the table, and then everybody working as hard as they can, because at the end of the day, what we do in intimate apparel is so detailed. And that's why more than anywhere else in apparel, I think, the construction is so important, because every tiny 1/8, 1/16 of an inch, every stitch you choose, every component makes such a big difference in how it feels and fits on the person wearing it, that we have to obsess those details. And to be honest, that's hard work. Like, it's hard work and commitment to getting those things right. And you need to be committed, and you need to know that your whole team is committed to that. So that teamwork really comes together to obsess the details and make sure everything is the best it can be.
I completely agree with Nicole. I think teamwork is so important. I mean, I think it's great to be able to bounce ideas off of a team, and when you can all come together, and sometimes you think of something and somebody adds in their input, it just makes it so much greater. It can sometimes just take that thing to another level. And when you have experts in their own respective area and they're doing their own role, I don't know, it just makes the process run smoother, and you're giving everybody the opportunity to input and really shine where they're the strongest, and that's when you come up with a great product. I couldn't agree more with Nicole.
I'll also just add on that I agree with what Annalisa and Nicole both said, but also something that I see particularly in young people when they're first starting the industry is that on top of teamwork, you have to be really thoughtful about your communication with people. One, make sure to always be looping people in, but also, work can be stressful. Sometimes when we're really busy, we forget about the sort of interpersonal aspect of working with other people. But you also have to remember that you have to keep keep trust and mutual respect with your team members, and that comes from being thoughtful, considerate, checking in with people if they seem stressed or overwhelmed, so that you're really kind of building that relationship on something that's really strong, because that is definitely needed when things get busy and stressful, that that your team is there with you and not working against you. And I definitely think that comes from just being very thoughtful in your interactions with people, and just sort of keeping that in mind.
Awesome. So, on that common thread of teamwork and collaboration, something that always comes up with our students is feedback. So, how does that impact your overall success within a career in fashion? So we're talking about the delivery of communicating it and also receiving it.
Do you want me to jump in? Listen, it's hard because design is personal, right? So somebody designs something from their heart and soul, and they present it to a team or to their boss or to a buyer. And if, the fact that it might not be embraced, it could be tough. You have to learn to be able to process that, every design that comes from you might not be the answer, and you can't let it get you down. I mean, you need to look for those common denominators of success and failure and build upon them. And I think that all of us, when we're working with designers, also have to be sensitive to that. Like, I will say sometimes to my team, listen, I'm not trying to be a dream killer here, but let me tell you why this doesn't work. Convince me that I'm wrong, right? Because, so being able to take both positive and negative criticism is important. Being able to give both positive and negative criticism, and also to be open, right? Because just because you tried something a couple of years ago, as the oldest person on this panel, I've been around to see a lot of trends come and go. And, maybe you tried something really new, but it was almost too new then. So it didn't work and people didn't embrace it. You have to kind of go back and say, why didn't that work? Be open to trying it again. I mean, obviously, if somebody presents the idea of the 3-cup bra for you, that's never going to work, right? But you have to be open to, maybe it wasn't the design. There were some other factors. Maybe cotton prices were insane right then, so that you couldn't bring it out to the market. Because we haven't talked about that at all. Price, because that, designing for your price and getting the price right is another thing we probably should discuss. Sorry, I went off track.
No, that was great. Would anybody like to add on?
I forgot the first question. I know.
So the first question was like, how can feedback impact, overall success within your career, giving it and receiving it?
Yes, I got your price point. And I was thinking something and then got on that point. The whole feedback is a gift is such a true statement. And becoming a team leader and a person to give young designers feedback, it is hard because you don't want to crush anyone's dreams. And you don't want to, you can always see the brilliance in people's ideas, and there might be something that makes it off for right now or not right for the ask from market, because everything you're designing is trying to meet a specific need or insight. And that design might be brilliant, but might not meet that exact thing that's being asked for. So as young designers and young people going into the industry, stay super open-minded, because the way that you take feedback as well is going to mean you get more or less of it. And I got to the point in my career, I've always been kind of like this. And if you're not, I think it can be harder to adjust your mind to this. But I prefer to get negative feedback over positive feedback, because negative feedback, I can learn and grow and I can get better. And positive feedback is awesome, but there's not so much you can do with it besides say, okay, we got something right, and I think being proactive and always wanting to learn more and learn from the things that people say to you is so important. And I found through my career, and this is hard, it was hard, the industry shifted a lot, but when people really believe in you, they're often harder on you. And they give you more feedback because they want to see what you do with it. They'll give you more challenges. They'll give you more tough love to have you come back and push you a little bit harder to get to stronger ideas or to question yourself more often, because it's in the questioning and those challenges of, but it's not the right cost, or but that construction is really hard, that gives you the opportunity to rethink and come up with something better. But sometimes in your career, that's really hard. You get some really tough feedback, or someone tells you something you thought was great was really off the mark, and it hurts, and you have to stop and just take a moment, because it is personal as designers, right? We love our work. We're trying to do the best we can. And you have to stop and think through it and realize, like, okay, this person cares about me, wants me to get better, and believes that I can come up with the next thing. Because I do think, if you stop getting feedback, it's not a great thing. You want to always be getting that feedback to be moving forward. But then in giving feedback, you always want to give feedback respectfully. To your point, you want to be totally respectful of your partners, the thought that they've put into the things, their understanding, their perspective, and always thoughtfully give the perspective, acknowledging what is awesome about what's going on or what's been presented, and then adding in what you think could improve it, or what you think makes it miss the mark a little bit.
Thank you, Nicole, for sharing. Would anybody else like to add on?
There's not much more to, I agree with both Debbie and Nicole. I mean, feedback can be difficult to receive and give sometimes, but constructive criticism, can be hard. But I feel like you need to always, I think it's the mindset that you go into it and how you come out of it. Mindset that the things that you take from that feedback. The right feedback, though, I think can, foster and promote growth, and it just makes you work harder for it. It makes you want to get to where people see that possibility and see that idea and it makes you work harder for it. And and kind of makes you prouder of it in the end too. So I think it all depends on how you accept that feedback and what you do with that feedback.
Absolutely. So what type of interests, abilities, skills, education, and training would help a person to be successful in intimate apparel?
I'll start. I think Annalisa mentioned this earlier, but really just understanding the construction. Like if you know, I started sewing from a really young age and was always making something. And so that was always very easy for me to get into. But then as I've gotten further into my career, how the construction and patterns tie in together, and then also the technical aspects of machinery, or how you lay out the lace so that it so that you get the biggest impact with the lowest amount of like actual yield or usage of the lace, and really trying to sort of maximize results. Like that all stems from having that like early interest in love and just actually physically playing around with fabric, pattern, sewing. And so just never stop being curious with that and experimenting with that, on your own. You can learn so much. I'll also just say that I think, again, for me, I'm in a really small industry where people are wearing little different hats, but truly understanding the full cycle of the business. I think as young people, you probably have your finger on the pulse more around like social media, marketing. Like a lot of these things really tie into what is happening in the industry. And I think often young people can bring so much from having this understanding that as someone who's maybe, as someone my age, like if I'm trying to sell to someone who's 20, like I'm not spending all this time on like TikTok or understanding trends or things that are coming from that. And I think that younger people often really get that. And I think it can often really help to add to a team, especially if the team is designing product for a younger audience.
Would anybody else like to add on?
Good point, Maggie. I think an awesome practice of just asking questions, constantly asking questions, and entering and being new, asking questions up of like what you don't understand. Like there are no dumb questions, and be a sponge. Going in and starting, for me, I spent so much time with the sewers in the sample room. And at first they would laugh at my designs that couldn't be made, to be honest. Like, they're like, oh, you can't sew that. But then they show you how you would sew it, or they show you how you could do it. I heard somebody mention Sonia earlier, which reminded me of Sonia Vizcaino, who was over tech when I started at my first company. And she taught me so much about how to construct things. But is literally sitting there and being willing to be schooled. You come in and you're like, I finished design school, but there is so much you don't know. And that openness to sitting and having somebody tell you what you don't know, and really taking it in is so important. But then at the same time, I think the people who've been there forever are going to ask you questions. What do you like? What do you know? What are we missing? How is TikTok? How is social media? How are the new trends impacting the way you're looking at what we're creating? Because there are going to be things that you bring that the people who've been there forever don't know. And there's going to be things for you to learn from the people who've been there forever. So I think never being shy to ask questions. And if you're not a person to ask them in a meeting or in front of people, that's totally fine. Take people aside afterwards. I think people are happy to share what they know and to teach. So feel like you can always ask. And even before you start your job, if you have sessions like this, or if you're lucky enough to go to either an online or regular trade show, the people showing at Curve or some of the things that I know you guys through High School of Fashion Industries and FIT have access to. I used to sit and just ask the people with their own lines, like Maggie, questions. How did you start? How did you know you could do this? Where do you have production? And same thing of materials and trims people that you might meet in school. How do you make this? How can you do this? Can you do this? I think the never-ending questions. I think some people think questions make it feel like you don't know things, but the more you ask, the more you learn. Yeah, I think questions in any atmosphere are great for learning and growing.
Hi, if I could just add, I think Maggie mentioned going to the stores a lot earlier, but if there's any way you can ever get consumer feedback I'm lucky that I have about 33 women on my team that work out in all the department stores across the country. And, their work, even now with the pandemic, they're in stores, they're doing fittings in a very different way, but they're working with consumers every day. We're doing a lot of virtual stuff too, which is super cool. But getting that consumer feedback and really hearing it to build better product is important, because at the end of the day, women buy intimate apparel mostly so they look better in their clothing. That's most, and feel better in their clothing and are just better, right? And a designer has to understand that they're designing product to achieve that goal, not just to be pretty or not just to be an idea, to truly make the buying of it more worthwhile, that somebody wants to spend the money. And that's for somebody that is buying a $10 bra at Walmart or, a $70 bra at Saks. It's all relative. That they're willing to make that investment in your product. It has to be right.
That's great. So we've entered the question and answer portion. All right, what I'm going to ask my lovely students, if you have a question, you can either drop them into the chat or you can use the raise hand feature and I will call your name. You can unmute and ask your question. Okay. Let's see. I'll give everybody a moment. Okay, Natalia, I see your hand raised. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, I'm Natalia. And my question is how you started to do bras or bridal, because being a designer is hard to pick what kind design you like, because for me, I get bored really fast and I like to do everything. So how you got to a point to say, oh, I like that style?
I can speak to that a little bit. For me, I fell in love with lingerie and intimate apparel from a young age, just because I loved that it's something that you buy for yourself. It's not something, a lot of fashion is about what you express to other people. Maybe it's how you express status or who you are, but this is something that's truly for yourself. And I've always found that was really beautiful. And I've always really loved that aspect of it. I also really appreciate how technical it is, and I've always loved that as well. But to your concern about feeling like you get bored or something, I don't feel that if you take a job that you should feel that you're sort of pigeonholed in that and that you won't be able to find other things that interest you. I mean, Nicole, for example, is a great example. She's done, Pink, that probably had more sleepwear. She's done Nike, that's, sports bras. I'm sure you've worked on more sexy bras, more practical bras. You can take your career and sort of move it into different places so that you have different, experiences that follow different interests that you have. Although you do have to be focused enough to stay at one job for long enough to really learn and get better at that. So there's a balance there, but I don't think you should feel like you're stuck in one place and you can't try different things.
Creedy, you have your, oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Never mind,
Nicole.
that's good. Going. Oh no, I was gonna say totally, Maggie. Your career will take you in different directions that I think you shouldn't feel like you're gonna get bored. But it depends on what you pick. And I've had friends go from bridal to denim but I do think there is value in finding something you really love and are passionate about, because it helps your career shape itself. When you become an expert at something, you have more opportunities to go deeper into different angles in it, versus when you do jump around a little bit, it's a little harder to find that next thing. And then for you to be truly valued for having an expansive knowledge of something versus a little bit of everything, which is just a little bit different. But when you look into these things, I loved bras and intimate apparel First, because I found my first one and helped my friends find them, and I realized what a need there was for everybody's different body types. And then when I saw the innovation that went in, I'm like, oh, geeky science and fashion. The science is always evolving. And then at Nike, I partnered on footwear and had somebody reach out to me about a footwear design job because the technology you're doing in bras could be related to this. So I think if you really think into any area, you can kind of see the different angles and see if there are enough to keep you interested. Some areas of design are rather straight and narrow, and other ones are more multifaceted. And I think that would help you make a decision knowing yourself and like how much growth you need.
Thank you. Thank you.
Akriti, you had a question.
Yeah, and I love what you guys were saying. Like literally my wrist hurt. I've been taking notes on like everything so fast. But so I guess one question is, what is one way you stay grounded and kind of task oriented when there is a lot of chaos and things with the industry? Like, how do you make sure you do get what you need done at the end of the day, even though your day changes all the time?
Do you want me to take it? I mean, I think that it's just a habit that you have to get into. You know, you have to find what works for you. Do you keep it all on your phone? Do you have a little notebook? You know, what is it that are the core deliverables that you have to get done and have the discipline to do it? You know, there's parts of everyone's job that they don't like. That's just the reality. Right now is our time of year where we're doing reviews, and I hate to do them, and I have to do like 40 of them. So I have this thing that I'm going to do 5 of them a day, right? And yesterday I fell a little behind. So today I have to pick it up a little bit, but you just find what works for you. And, you know, even if it's a little reward system you have for yourself, you know, but if you love your job, overall, it kind of falls into place, to be honest.
It doesn't. There are always those things. Once you're in it, you kind of learn what can be done the next day and still be on track. You know, once you're in it, there are those things that you have them on your list, but you know that these other things have come up and that you try to get it done that day, but you're kind of aware on where everything is, and you know what you can end up doing the next day and still be good and still be on time and still be on track with everything.
I'm all about I'm all about a checklist. I can be like ADD designer, and I have a million things that I love and want to be working on. And so I've actually like worked with a coach, but like for leading, but also just for myself to like stay focused on those things. And I have my top 3 things every day. And I go through with my team and my leadership team and my team and make sure that we're all aligned to like the 3 things that we're getting done for the week and for the day. And if I hit those things, I know I have time that I can work on the more creative things that I want to be getting after. And occasionally you don't hit those things, and to Debbie, it rolls the next day and you're like, okay, I'm going to be swamped today because I got a little off focus. But I think finding that system that works for you, and then making sure you're crossing off the things that are most important and that those things are aligned with what's most important to all of your teams is important.
Awesome, thank you.
Avani, you have a question?
Yes. How do you deal with like creative blocks? You know, when you just can't think of anything new to design or what you might want to add, or when you just get stuck trying to create for the collection and stuff like that?
I can definitely speak to this one. I find, I mean, that my creativity comes in waves. I might have a couple of months can sometimes go by where I'm really not interested or inspired in anything, and then some small thing will happen. Someone will walk down the street and a detail on her outfit will spark something in me, and I will sit down and sketch out enough products that can literally fill 3 collections. And so I think the most important thing to think about when it comes to designing is that it doesn't happen If you have a job, it doesn't necessarily happen between 9 to 5, or during school hours or whatever. Creativity is just one of those things that happens when it happens, and you have to, I have a sketchbook. It's with me at all times, and I will sometimes stop on the street because I saw something and start jotting things down, because it's just, when it's flowing, it flows. Obviously, when you have a job and you have deadlines, that doesn't always work. And you just have to work through that. But I find that if you're not feeling creative, it's because you need to go and find something that's going to spark creativity. And sometimes you can do that online, but sometimes you need to sometimes you need to get off Pinterest or something, because it's all the same algorithm showing you everything. Go find a book to open up, go to a vintage market, go find something where you're going to see something that will spark something new in you, because I think it's very necessary if you're truly, looking to create something fresh and new.
Thank you.
Mariamu, you have a question, my love?
Yeah, I was gonna ask how you guys keep your motivation. Like, say you have this really great idea and you're super confident about it, and then it fails. Like, how do you keep the motivation, encouraging yourself and keeping a positive mindset?
I feel like the idea or the design concept or the solution to something came from somewhere. And usually for me, it's from an insight from something a woman somewhere said, or a bunch of women said, or a bunch of our story associates said on a trip or something. And when I think about solving that problem for them, that's my motivation, right? So how can I explain it in a different way if it wasn't understood? Or if this isn't producible, how do I come up with an alternate solution that's still going to solve that same problem? And I feel like when your end goal isn't just even if it's a really cool design, that can be enough sometimes. But if it's grounded more in a solution or in something that you think is going to be groundbreaking to help people, to me, if you have a strong foundation like that, you almost can't lose motivation, because you always have that inside you, and it's just pushing you to find another angle and get other people on board with that feeling. To me, that's the strongest motivation I can have, and that I can instill in our teams and get people on board with, so you're all on that same page of motivation.
Thank you.
Akriti, I see another question in here. You may have to explain it to us a bit. Imposter syndrome?
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't know if it was fully clear, but have you ever faced imposter syndrome in where you are in your careers, or anywhere from when you were starting out to now, sort of thing, just where you feel am I really here? Am I supposed to be here? Am I really qualified to be here? And just how do you kind of face it or get out of it?
I can speak to that as well. Running a business, I'm often having to face the fact that I don't know everything. And, I'll be on calls and people are pitching me something, and, they're using all sorts of acronyms that I don't understand, except now I do understand a lot of them because I've been on enough calls and asked that. And I think you have to not be afraid to sort of look like you don't know something, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I usually appreciate it when someone is willing to ask a question that maybe seems like it's obvious. But also, as someone running a business, I also face imposter syndrome all the time. I recently hired a chief operating officer, and I found myself interviewing people with Harvard MBAs who were going to be working for me. And I felt very, potentially working for me. And I felt very insecure about interviewing people who were extremely experienced. But I realized that I needed to just make sure that I was really prepared. I researched a lot of thoughtful questions. I also have a coach who I asked, to kind of give me insight on being a really thoughtful interviewer. And then you just gotta go for it. And sometimes you get an adrenaline rush, but that can be the exciting part.
It's kind of funny. We used to have a saying that, we were all, and a lot of women, I think, feel this way. Today, they're going to find out that I'm a fraud, right? And that I don't know as much as I know. And my advice is fake it till you make it, because eventually your knowledge catches up with it. And, just try to have that confidence in yourself.
Love that. Thank you.
I think we all feel like imposters at all different times. And I've moving companies. I mean, for me, going to Nike, right? And I just had great success at Victoria's Secret Pink, but walking into Nike, like their first bra designer, and talking to all these men over footwear, who am I to tell you what to do with your bra business? Like, who am I to come in? And I know exactly what I think we should do. And I have this vision, and I, sold it coming in, but then I think you're always going to have that feeling. And I've heard so many designers talk about it, that we all have it. You have this vision, but I think everyone questions, what do I really know? And then you stop and think, I've had all this experience. I've done all of this. I know this. And I think your friends and your team and your crew of people, I have certain people I've worked with throughout my career that I always stay close to. And they'll remind you who you are and your value and what you know when you need that confidence boost coming from outside you. But to Debbie's point and Maggie's point, you look inside yourself too, and pull out that confidence, because it's real. And the fake it till you make it, sometimes you still feel like you're faking it once you've made it, and you know, but there's always going to be those days that you feel that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely reminding yourself of your strengths and knowing where you're strong, and then when you have a team, relying on those team members for the other areas where you're not as strong, but your strengths and your weaknesses, and then you just tell yourself of your strengths and build on that, and keep going on what your strengths are and be open to learning and continuing to grow on those.
So we have time for one more question. And students, if you have any additional questions, you can email me, and then I can try and forward and get some kind of response or feedback for you. Okay, so just know that. Avani had a question. It was, how do you work through ideas not coming to life the way you pictured them?
For me, sometimes, I don't know, when I work on ideas and they don't come to life, I either look at it, take a hard look at it, and drop it if I don't feel that it's anything that I see going in a different direction. And sometimes it's worth building on. It's taking it back, taking a few steps back, maybe showing other people, getting input, putting it to the side. And I don't know, that's how I personally, that's how I seem to go forward with things. And I'll, pick it up at a later time and relook at it and try it again if I find that it's really something I believe in. And sometimes when you've tried and it's not working, you can take two routes. I think you either put it down and look at it again and figure out what's not right about it, or figure that it's something that you haven't wanted, that you've tried all that you can and you can't move forward with.
I'll also just say it's sort of the nature of design that most of them don't go anywhere. I mean, you'll sketch 100 things, you'll make you'll mock up different options, you'll strike off different colors, but at the end of the day, there's really only a few styles that really can kind of make it to the final line. And so you really just want to ask yourself, like, is this really what I want to put out into the world? Like, is this the best that I have of all the options? And if it's not, just move on and get the next idea going. Even if you've spent, a good amount of time working on it, it's better to work on something that's really going to go somewhere and make your customers happy, versus try to make something that's maybe just not working, like trying to force it.
All right, so it is time. I want to say thank you so much for sharing your experiences, your amazing wisdom and advice with our students here. We're so appreciative of you taking the time to meet with us and really speak to, the future of fashion. So thank you so much. It's been a wonderful experience. If any of the students want to say thank you or any great takeaways, you can go ahead and unmute yourself or type it in the chat. Go ahead, Katie. Okay, it's in the chat. Oh.
I would like to hone in. I'd like to say thank you to all the panelists and to Tara and Jack and Caitlin for putting this together, and especially Tara for the presentation. Thank you so much. We're so grateful to have had you put this together for the students. I really hope that the students took in this invaluable information and feedback and advice from these wonderful panelists today who took time out of their busy schedules. We're so grateful to have you participate, and we hope that you can take away the most valuable, I should say invaluable advice and inspiration from this. I mean, I even felt inspired by this talk. So this is wonderful, and so grateful that the students were be able to take part in this.
Ms. Ricci, you're on mute, by the way.
Thank you. Akriti, did you want to share something? I saw the hand go up.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you guys. Like, honestly, this was really helpful, especially because right now, like, after like stressful college apps and stuff, I was very much like creative block, like couldn't think at all kind of thing. And so this was definitely like very helpful to like relook at, what I should focus on and stuff. So it was very helpful to kind of look forward and like learn more of like what the process will look like. So yeah, thank you.
Paloma?
Yes, I wanted to say that thank you so much. It really showed me like what the future might look like and what I might experience. It definitely prepared me, mentally to see, what might come my way. So thank you very much.
Okay, and that just about wraps it up. Students, you are more than welcome to end the call, like leave the call, okay? And I hope everybody has a wonderful evening, okay? Be safe, be well, and hang in there, okay? And a special thank you to our panelists and the members of the Under Fashion Club for facilitating this remarkable opportunity. It's just so exciting and inspiring.